Good morning, this is Piero Giorgio, the author of Survive the Economic Collapse. Today I would like to review a book of a very famous prepper, survivalist, Fernando Aguirre, which you know by probably Ferfal on the internet. And his latest book is Bugging Out and Relocating, What to Do When Staying is not an Option. So I read this book because it's very interesting, first of all, when even as myself, as an author of books about prepping and survival and indeed economic collapse, it's very interesting to read what others say, especially someone who had the balls, I must say, many years ago to write about how the economic collapse of Argentina affected his life and what were his approaches on how to prepare for himself and family. And his accounts were one of the most important in the community of people who try to learn and how to prepare. So obviously his latest book is very important to understand what someone who has had decades of discussions and thoughts and interaction with other people about these topics has to say. So I bought this book on the internet. It's very well done. It's self-published. And what this book is talking about is about bugging out and relocating. So how do you move away from the place you are living in case of disaster, in case of economic downturns, in case of high rise of criminality or other topics. Why you need to relocate is not really covered in the book, only very little, because the book wants to talk about how you plan, how you do it, and how you run that. So basically the book has really two big parts. The first part is about how you prepare your bug out. And of course, in Fernando, on his blog and videos, he talks about how do you bug in, how you, other topics. But particularly on the topic of the bug out, I found that this book is a very good complement on what I write in my books. Because in my books, I really talk about homesteading and how you build a sustainable autonomous base. And I do explain how you select a place and actually how you relocate. So there are links to this book. But certainly in my first book, which is in English, I don't talk about bug out. I do talk more the second one, which is not yet out in English. But certainly I found that this book has some very, very good points that are a good addition. So if you have read my book, I would really advise you to read this one. Or if you're planning or thinking about how you bug out, or would you like to leave the country you're in right now to move into a country where you feel you're going to be safer or better, that's the second part of the book. So first part of the book is how you bug out. So how you plan, how you think about it, what kind of material and tools do you need to do that. So he's covering really all the elements about, the classic gear, of course, and he's not going into port gear. He's really staying into down to earth. And actually, I learned a lot reading the first part of this book. I thought that he has very down to earth, pragmatic approach to what you need to prepare for bugging out, how you plan routes. He has very good points about caching. I think I've learned definitely something about what you need to put in a cache. Certainly, he's not also like many North American books. He's not talking too much about weapons and defense. And I think it's welcome that he covers more very pragmatic approaches. There might be some disagreements I have with some of what he says about people leaving the cities or not, but these are very tiny. Most of this first part of the book I really agree. And actually, I think that he's taking a no-nonsense approach on the budget and how you can do it with the means of most normal people. Now, I thought that this was very, very good, and actually I made some notes on things that I would like to use for my own preparation. Of course, how to do bug out, bags and plans, and I will improve them based on what I read in this book. Second chapter is how you relocate to a different country. So this is not about bugging out, because when you hopefully relocate, you have time. So this is not about having to run away from your country as a refugee. It's really taking the time, or where do you want to move? And a lot of you, from the interactions I have with some of my readers, you are thinking, should I leave the UK? And I think you should. Should I leave France? Should I leave the United States? And where should I go? And so on. So very useful in this book is I found that he has, first of all, he has lists of many data about many countries, which is always a good job to put up about, I don't know, firearm ownership per capita, criminal crime rate, ranks of personal skills, education, economy. So this is very interesting data that has been collected and which is a good insight. Of course, you should do your homework, as I always say, and you should think for yourself. But this is basically a very good guideline. Also about relocating, he really gives advice on what are the main elements of what you should think of, and what are, I thought they were very smart, that part, what are the details when you visit a street or area or a neighborhood of a city or a countryside that you should look at. And in my book I do mention that a lot for countryside, but I think he has some very valid point about how you choose a neighborhood in a city. And I didn't think about some of these points, so I thought they're very valuable and a very good read. So he talks about real estate and so on. And finally, there is a chapter on what countries he is analyzing or he has analyzed, because he has relocated. He left beautiful Argentina to very wet, but also very beautiful and nice and peaceful Ireland. And I salute all my Irish friends from the times I used to work in Dublin. Beautiful place, Ireland. And basically he gives some examples on how he relocated and how he thought about, obviously he must have thought about North America, United States and Canada, how he has thought about Australia, New Zealand, and of course he gives an example about Ireland. He obviously didn't think about the UK, although Scotland is a good place, and maybe Wales but that's off topic. Anyway, and for all of these different countries, he gives some example. Of course, it's very succinct. You cannot explain in 5 pages how and where you should relocate in the United States. I mean, you need an encyclopedia for that. And there's vast amounts of resources online. But certainly he gives some good insight. And again, it's not what is right that is important here, is the process, the thought process that makes you think, how am I going to choose a place and what are the important steps that I should look for relocating? Availability of jobs, security, crime rate. Certainly, for example, for Australia, one of the big problems of Australia is lack of drinkable water. So there's a lot of things. And I should say to you, don't go to New Zealand. It's horrible, because that's where I want to go, because it's a great place. If Switzerland ever falls down, and I hope it doesn't, for me, New Zealand is my choice. He also talked about Uruguay, which would be another interesting choice, and certainly some of my customers have plans to relocate or certainly have a second home in Uruguay. And actually, I would have loved to have seen what he thinks about Argentina as a relocation place, because some of my clients actually are planning to move in Argentina. So it was interesting. He moved away and I moved in. So perhaps, Fernando, here's a challenge to you. Maybe we can meet in Ireland or in Switzerland. You're most welcome to come and visit me in my farm here in Switzerland. And we can discuss different strategies and ideas, and while our kids can play outside and in the nice landscape. Or I'll come to Ireland, no problem. Anyways, last chapter in this book I thought was fantastic, because it links to my latest book about women and prepping and survival, which is about, it's a very short chapter, but I think was very, very interesting, because he's interviewing his boss, his wife. And we all who are prepping have to include our partners, and unfortunately most of us preppers are men, and we have to talk to our chain of command, which is our wives. And jokes aside, it's very important to involve, and of course it's very important to have this example of how the wife of someone who's preparing and planning to relocate thinks about the process and the results of that relocation. So I think that has also a lot of value, and I think the book is not very expensive. It has about 180 pages, and I really advise you. It's a very good book to complement what other literature you have, and so I can only advise you to buy and read this book. And Fernando, all the best to you in Ireland. Take care.